We are now working in Arrays2 starter. And what Arrays2 starter is going to do, so I'll go ahead and run this so we can see what we're working towards. So what Arrays2 starter is going to do, let's go ahead and save it and then preview it. Okay, so it's this simple little area, and what we're going to do is the user will enter several numbers, 5 or more numbers, each separated by a comma. And then when they click split the array, what should happen is it will print out a list of even numbers sorted and a list of odd numbers sorted. So it'll take this information, pull it out of the box, and then separate it into a couple of arrays and then print those arrays to the screen. So that is what we are working towards. Okay, so if you are in Arrays2 starter, you should see all of these different comments. You should read through all of them on your own so you understand what we're doing. We're going to read through them step by step as we work through this code. But essentially what we're doing is we have this button where it says, let's do this. And when we do let's do this, it should call, so the button, this is wrong. Okay. The button, when clicked, is going to call 2 separate functions. It is going to set the array, and it is going to divide the array. All right, so let's start by creating our function called let's do this. Takes no arguments, and all this function is going to do, it is going to create an array called nums, and nums will be created by running the function setArray, and then we are going to call a function called divide, and we are going to pass the array nums. So this is pretty cool. We are going to be able to experiment with passing an argument through this function, and that argument is going to be generated by setArray. Now, just so we can test this and make sure it works the way we want, let's go ahead and comment these out. And we're going to check first to make sure our button is working. Okay, so you know how to do that. We're going to do alert, and we're just going to say this works. All right, so save it. View the browser preview, and it works. Perfect. Okay, so we know our button works. Awesome. So now if we have any other errors, we know that it's not with the functionality of the button. All right, make sure that you uncomment out each of these. Okay. All right, so we've got our first function written. Awesome. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a function called setArray that is going to get the data from the input box. So just to check, up here, our input box is called data. Okay, so you're going to need to know that in order for us to get the information from the box. Okay, so we've got function setArray. Array does not take any arguments. And we are going to create a new array called data. Oh, this is not an array, sorry. We're going to create a new variable called data. And data is going to be a string. It is going to get the data by ID, data dot value. Oops. All right, so we have a string where we have gotten that data from the box, and then the next thing that we're going to need to do is create our array. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to create a new array called values, and we are going to take this string, and we are going to use a method called split. And what split does is it takes a string, and at every point where it finds a comma, in this case, it is going to create a new element of that array. Okay, so we have a string and we are essentially extracting the elements from the array and putting it in a new array, extracting the elements from that string and putting them in a new array called values. And then the last thing we're going to do is we are going to return that array. Okay, so this function, we run through it, we return values. Values is set as the array nums. Okay, so let's test that, make sure it works. And the way we're going to test that is we are going to do alert, and we are going to have it print nums to the alert. Okay, all right, so go ahead and save it. Browser preview it. Preview. And we'll just do 3 just for fun. So the array, and there it goes. Perfect. All right. Make sure that you uncomment divide. All right. Cool, so we've got 2 of our functions down, and now we get to the big kahuna. Divide is a toughie, so you're gonna probably have to pause and work through this video a couple times just to make sure that you get all of the different components. So essentially what divide is going to do, is that it is going to take this array that we pass to it, and it is going to divide that array into 2 separate arrays called even and odd. Okay? It is going to print out 2 separate lists of these numbers that should be sorted. Okay, sorry, I had to fix my comments because I'm working in a different document than I gave you. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we are going to create that function. Function is called divide. Now divide, right, is going to take an array, so we know that we need a parameter. We also know it because when we call it up here, divide is taking that parameter. Ooh, if you did not delete that alert up there. Okay. All right, so we are going to pass it a parameter called numbers. And essentially what it means, so look, so we've got this open bracket here. We are going to write a whole bunch of code. So here's what I want you to do. Go ahead and scroll all the way down to right before this script tag. And you are going to go ahead and close that bracket so that we don't forget to do it, okay? If your code doesn't work when you write this with me, in all likelihood, you left off that end bracket. So all of the rest of the code we are about to write is going to live within the divide function. So go ahead and set yourself up for success by putting that closed bracket. Okay, so up here, right, when we call divide and we pass nums, it's gonna, everywhere that we type numbers within this function, it's going to run nums. We'll talk about that again as soon as we finish this code, but I just want you to be aware and see kind of how passing a variable works. All right, so first things first, we're going to declare 2 empty arrays. This is pretty easy. We're going to say var even numbers, var even nums, save ourselves some typing. And then to declare an empty array, you're just creating an open and a square closed bracket. And what that does is that sets up an empty array represented by even nums. We're going to do the same thing for odd nums. Open and close bracket, and there we go. Checked off, done. All right, so the next thing we are going to do is we are going to put the numbers into the appropriate arrays. So we're going to use a new structure, and I'm going to type it and then talk through it, called a for of loop. Okay, so we're going to type for var num of numbers. Okay. Now what this does is that it is a simplified for loop for arrays. So what this says is, starting at the beginning of numbers, numbers is our array, starting at the beginning of numbers, do whatever is in this loop and then do it for the next one. So essentially it's going to traverse our array starting at index 0, then moving to index 1, then moving to index 2. Okay, so you could use a traditional for loop like we've been doing, but we can use for of, which is going to allow us to write a little bit less code, and it's totally valid because we want to traverse the entire array. All right, so we're going to do if num modulo 2 equals, oop, that is the wrong symbol, modulo, num modulo 2 equals 0, we are going to do even nums dot push num. Okay, so this is saying if we divide num by 2 and the remainder is 0, we are going to push is a method, if you've watched the lecture for this week, push is a method that is used with arrays. We are going to push num, whatever is located at that element for numbers, we're going to add that to the even array. Else, we're going to do the same thing, but if it has a remainder, the remainder is going to be 1. That means it is an odd number, and we are going to push num to our odd array. Okay, let's talk through this one more time. If you already got it and you feel good, don't worry about it. Move on to the next part. But it's a little confusing. So let's say we are at 0. We are at index 0 of the array numbers. If the element at index 0 is, when divided by 2, has a remainder of 0, we are going to add the element located at index 0 to even, the even array. Otherwise, we are going to add the element located at index 0 to the odd array. Then we're going to go back and we're going to do the same thing for the element at index 1. Okay? All right. Awesome. So that part, done. Okay, here's where it gets fancy. We are going to copy this whole big old chunk. Actually, I'm going to copy this whole chunk. I'm going to cut it. All of the rest of the comments. Let's delete this up, because this one applies to the for loop. Looks like I didn't have to delete them. That's okay. All right. So our next part is we are going to create 2 strings, one for the sorted even array and one for the sorted odd array. Let's do that part first. We are going to say var even equals, and we're going to use the empty string. All this does is tell our browser that the variable even is a string. Okay, super important. So var even equals empty string. And we're going to do the same thing for odd. So var odd equals empty string. All right. Now, we're going to go ahead and build out our solution for even, because when we build out the solution for even, it's the exact same thing for odd, except we change which array we're working with. All right. So we see if the array is empty, set the string to say so. That tells us we're going to need an if-else structure, right? Because we've got if it's empty, do this. Otherwise, we're going to do something else. So if the array is empty, so we're going to use a method called, or we're going to use a property called length. So if even nums.length equals 0, if the length of the array even numbers is 0, that means it's empty. There's nothing in that array. So we are going to set the string even to be no even numbers. Okay? All right, same thing is true for odd. If our odd array, let's go ahead and copy and paste it. So if odd nums dot length is 0, then the odd string is going to be no odd numbers. Okay. All right. So now let's do the else. So else, we are going to need to sort that array. So in order to do this, we are going to say even nums dot sort. Sort is another array method. But the way that the array method works, and this is what it talks about up here, the way that the array method sort works is it sorts by Unicode value. So if you recall back when we were working with binary and hexadecimal, each character has a value in Unicode. This is totally fine for strings because the value of letters, right, the value of lowercase a is less than the value of uppercase a. The value of lowercase b is greater than the value of lowercase a. So they sort the way they're supposed to. But that it doesn't work for numbers because the number 10 is going to be bigger than the number 9. But using the traditional sort function, the value 10 would sort as smaller than the value 9 because of the leading 1. Okay? So we need to write a specific sort function. So the way we're going to do this is we are going to write a function that compares A and B. A and B are going to be the last, so like the value at index 0 and the value at index 1, or the value at index 1 and the value at index 2. Okay? And we are going to say return A minus B. So what this does is it says for our two values, the one located maybe at index 0 and the one located at index 1, I'm going to subtract B from A. If B is bigger than A, so we're doing math, which is going to allow it to evaluate the numbers the way they actually are. If B is bigger than A, it is going to return a negative number, which will tell our program that B is going to stay after A. If A is bigger than B, it will return a positive number, which will tell our program that it needs to flip A and B within our sorting. Okay, so this is going to allow us to sort through our array and take our elements and get them in order, ascending order, so from 0 to infinity. If we wanted to sort it in descending order, we would just flip this and make it return B minus A. All right, so there we go. There's our sort function. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and update that string, and we're going to start it with the even numbers are. And then we're going to use that for of structure again. So for num of even nums, even equals even plus num plus space. And you could always change this up so that it looks the way you want it to look, but essentially if there are elements in that array, we're going to start the string with the even numbers are, and then we're going to traverse the array and add each even number to this string with a space so that they don't all jumble together. All right, so like I said, we are going to go ahead and copy this else statement. Copy the whole else statement. And we are going to paste it here. We're going to change everywhere it says even to odd, right? Because it's the same structure, just for even or odd. All right. And then finally, the last thing we're going to do is what we know how to do already, which is print those to our document. So document.getElementById. The first one is evens. .inner HTML equals even. and then document.get element by ID, odds, dot inner HTML equals odd. All right, let's clean this up a little. Let's go ahead and save it. We'll browser preview it. There it is. 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 4, 8, 75. Click split the array, and there we go. It has split it, and it has sorted it. Now, if we just had odd numbers, for example, 1, 3, 5, 7, and click split the array, it's going to tell us there are no even numbers and give us the odd numbers, and the same thing should happen if we use even, and it does. All right, so that is what your code should do. I am going to zoom out so you can see all of the code if you are following along with me. So there you go. There's the top part. If you are following along, go ahead and just freeze it right here so that you can check your code and debug. And then there is the bottom part. Go ahead and freeze it, check your code, debug. If you're still having errors, make sure you send me an email and I will get you some help.